Nigga been doing the right thing. He just got people that's stealing from him. And whoever's supposed to handle the taxes ain't paying him, and they were stealing. So they just pocket the money.
The feds raided Quavo's house after owing $3 million in taxes, and gang, it's over. Not metaphorically, not career over. I mean, the government pulled up to that 11,000 square foot mansion in Alpharetta, Georgia, the same crib this man used to flex on the gram, and started taking things, chains, watches, property, assets, everything this man built over a decade of grinding. The IRS came and said, nah, that's ours now. Almost $3 million. 3 years of unpaid federal taxes and silence from his camp. But here's what makes this hit different. While Quavo was letting this debt stack up year after year, his former Migos brother Offset quietly paid off his tax debt and walked free. 1 month before this whole thing went public. 1 month, gang. And then you got the Chris Brown battle where the entire internet told Quavo to sit down and be humble. The streams weren't there. Cultural respect took a hit, and the whole time, the IRS was already building a case 3 years deep. Y'all need to hear this full story because this is not just a tax bill. This is a man watching everything he built get dismantled piece by piece in real time. All right, fam, before we get into why Quavo is sitting in the middle of a 3-alarm financial fire, let me remind y'all who this man was, because that context matters. We're talking about a kid from Gwinnett County, Georgia, born April 2nd, 1991. Grew up with his nephew Takeoff and his homie Offset, 3 dudes from the same neighborhood who had a vision so big the whole rap game eventually had to bow down to it. Migos wasn't just a rap group, they were a movement. They gave us a whole new flow. That triplet flow, that staccato bounce, the type of delivery that so many rappers started biting that it became the foundation of a whole era of trap music. Versace, Bad and Bougie, Walk It, Talk It, Motorsport, hit after hit after hit. And Quavo, he was the face, the voice you heard everywhere. He was on Justin Bieber records, Post Malone records, DJ Khaled records, Drake records. The man had 6 top 10 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 as a feature artist alone. 6. That's not luck, that's leverage, that's cultural currency. At his peak, we're talking about a man with an estimated net worth of $28 million, diamond chains, Bentleys, a mansion in Alpharetta that looked like a luxury hotel. This was a man who had made it, and made it for real. So how does a man go from sitting on top of that kind of empire to the IRS knocking on his front door with a legal claim that could strip everything he owns? Let me break it down for you. Here's the real tea. Quavo's troubles didn't start with the IRS. The fall started long before any tax documents were filed. To understand where he is right now, we gotta understand what the last few years have actually looked like for him, because it ain't been pretty, no cap. November 2022, Houston, Texas. Quavo and Takeoff are at a private party at a bowling alley. What should have been just a night out turned into one of the most tragic moments in hip-hop history. Takeoff, Quavo's nephew, his right hand, the quietest and arguably most talented member of Migos, was shot and killed outside that bowling alley. He was 28 years old. And gang, I don't care who you are or what you think about Quavo's music, you gotta understand what that did to this man. You lose your nephew, your bandmate, somebody you grew up with, somebody who was with you from the very beginning of this whole journey. That breaks a person. Emotionally, spiritually, creatively, that breaks you. On top of that, Migos was already done. The group had fractured. Quavo and Takeoff had gone off as a duo, Unk and Few, basically signaling that Offset was pushed out. There was talk about loyalty issues, about the family bond breaking down. The streets knew it was ugly behind the scenes. So by the end of 2022, Quavo had lost his group and his nephew. The era that made him a superstar was officially closed. He tried to keep going. He put out Rocket Power in 2023, a tribute album to Takeoff. And look, that project had real emotional weight behind it. It debuted at number 18 on the Billboard 200. For most artists, that would be a success. But for Quavo, compared to where Migos used to land, that was a signal. The fan base wasn't as locked in like that anymore. Then came 2024, and this is where things got really messy. Y'all remember the Chris Brown beef? Because this part is important. In April 2024, Chris Brown dropped a track called Freak. And on that record, Breezy came at Quavo's neck. No warning, no buildup, just direct disses. Now, Quavo fired back with Tender the very next day. And for a minute, it looked like it was about to be a real back and forth. But here's where it gets crazy. Chris Brown responded with Weakest Link and Gang. The internet's reaction said everything. Critics called it universally acclaimed. The public sided with Breezy. Social media went wild, but not in Quavo's favor. The perception that Qauvo came out on the losing end of that exchange spread like wildfire online. Quavo then dropped Overhoes and Bitches, featuring a posthumous verse from Takeoff. And while that move was emotionally charged and clearly personal, the reception was mixed at best. The people weren't rocking with it the same way. Think about what that means for his brand, for his momentum. In rap, perception is everything. If the streets start to feel like you lost a battle, even if it's just Twitter deciding it, that affects your streams, your deals, your ability to move units. And for Quavo, who was already trying to rebuild his career after Migos dissolved, taking a public L in a rap beef at that moment was the last thing he needed. But that's just the beginning though, because while all this is happening publicly, something else was building quietly in the background, something way more serious than a rap battle. January 2026. While most of us were getting into the new year, the Internal Revenue Service, the most powerful collection agency on planet Earth, was quietly filing paperwork. Federal documents, the kind of documents that, when they hit public record, change your whole life overnight. The IRS filed a federal tax lien against Quavious Kiat Marshall, and the number they came with, $2,912,644.33. Almost $3 million, gang. Let that sit for a second. But here's what makes this so much worse than just one missed payment. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't an accident. The IRS is claiming Quavo didn't pay his federal income taxes for 3 consecutive years. 3 years in a row, no cap. Let me give you the exact breakdown, because the numbers tell the story. 2021, $915,660. Almost $1 million just for that year alone. 2022, $887,486. Another year, another 6 figures just walked right past the IRS. 2023, $1,109,497.79. This year was the biggest. Over $1 million in a single tax year went unpaid. Add it all up, $2,912,644.33 owed to the federal government. And that's not counting the Georgia state tax liens that were also reported. An additional $496,000 tied to 2022 and 2023 state taxes. So, when you're putting it all together, we're potentially talking about a man who could be on the hook for close to $3.4 million total between federal and state obligations. Now, here's what a federal tax lien actually means, because some people see this and think it's just like a parking ticket situation. It absolutely is not. When the IRS files a federal lien, the government now has a legal claim over your property, your assets, everything you own, your bank accounts, your cars, your jewelry, your real estate. All of it is now technically under the government's reach until that debt is resolved. And in Quavo's case, that 11,000 square foot mansion sitting in Alpharetta, Georgia, that property is directly in the crosshairs. A tax lien is the IRS's way of saying, we know where you live, we know what you have, and if you don't handle this business, we will come take it. That's not a metaphor. That's not a figure of speech. The government can and does seize property to satisfy tax debts. They can force the sale of real estate. They can garnish future income. They can put holds on your ability to do business deals. A lien like this doesn't just affect your money. It affects your entire financial life, your credit, your contract, your ability to sign anything, buy anything, or move any significant money without it being flagged. For real, there's no understating how serious this is. And now, this is the part that the internet is running with. Because it's not just that Quavo owes $3 million to the feds. It's the timing of Doe Else had a similar problem and what they did about it. His former Migos bandmate, the man Quavo basically fell out with, Offset. Gang. Offset had his own IRS problems. He had a federal tax lien too. $1,575,266.73 owed for the 2022 tax year alone. And look, that's no small number either. That's over $1.5 million. But here's the difference. In December 2025, just 1 month before the Quavo lien became public, the IRS released Offset's lien, meaning Offset handled his business. He paid up, he wrote the check, settled the debt, and the government let him walk. Think about what that optics looks like side by side. One Migos member steps up and squares away his tax debt. The other Migos member, the feds file a lien on his mansion 1 month later. And to make it even more layered, there's the whole Cardi B situation with Offset's taxes. Cardi had gone public on social media basically saying she was still legally married to Offset, in part because he wanted her to cover his tax bill as a condition of the divorce. The man's tax drama became a whole public soap opera, but he still found a way to handle it. Quavo, no public statement, no response to the IRS filings, nothing. The silence speaks volumes. Fam. Now here's where people started connecting the dots. And some people watching this might be thinking, how does a man who made tens of millions of dollars not pay his taxes for 3 straight years? Let me keep it 100 with you. This is way more common in the entertainment industry than people realize, and the reasons why are actually pretty specific. First, understand that a rapper's income is irregular. You don't get a steady paycheck every 2 weeks. You're getting massive checks sometimes. A $500,000 show here, a $200,000 feature deal there, a $1 million label advance somewhere else. But those big checks don't come with a W-2 and an employer withholding your taxes automatically. You are responsible for setting that money aside and sending it to the government quarterly or annually. A lot of artists, especially ones who came up without financial infrastructure around them, don't have that discipline or don't have the right team around them to enforce it. Second, multiple business entities make this complicated. Quavo isn't just a rapper. He's got his music publishing, his touring company, his endorsement deals, licensing revenue, ownership stakes in various ventures. When your income flows through 5 or 6 different LLCs, managing tax obligations across all of them requires a serious financial team. If there's any breakdown in communication, any mismanagement, any period where you're not paying attention, the IRS starts adding up what you missed, and they add interest and penalties on top of it, which is why the number keeps growing year after year. Third, and this is the part nobody talks about enough, the years in question were also the most turbulent of Quavo's life. We're talking 2021, 2022, 2023. Those were the years Migos broke up. Those were the years Takeoff was killed. Those were the years Quavo was grieving, trying to figure out his career, navigating massive personal trauma. It doesn't excuse the situation, but it explains how the ball gets dropped. When your whole world is falling apart, file your quarterly estimated taxes might genuinely not be at the top of your mind, but the IRS doesn't care about your grief. The IRS doesn't care about your trauma. They care about their $2.9 million. And now that the lien is public record, the clock is ticking loud. All right, let's have the honest conversation that people are whispering about. Is Quavo broke? And look, I'm not gonna sit here and say the man is living on food stamps because that's not the situation. He's still got assets, he's still performing, he's headlining Mad Island Festival in St. Martin this month, he's still in the game. But here's the real question. Does a man worth $28 million let $3 million in federal taxes pile up across 3 years if the money is just sitting there ready to be deployed? Because think about it logically. If you have the money, why wouldn't you just pay it? Paying off a tax lien is straightforward. You write the check, the lien disappears, you move on with your life like Offset did. The fact that this lien is sitting out here on public record, the fact that there's been zero public response, that tells a story. His solo albums haven't exactly been crushing the charts the way Migos records used to. Rocket Power hit number 18. His singles throughout 2024 and 2025, while there were plenty of them, didn't generate the kind of cultural conversation that moves the needle for streaming revenue and brand deals. The Chris Brown beef cost him cultural capital. The loss of Migos cost him an entire revenue machine. And here's what the culture never talks about openly. The lifestyle doesn't slow down just because the income does. The mansion still costs money. The entourage still costs money. The jewelry, the cars, the travel, all of that still costs money. A lot of rappers maintain the appearance of wealth way past the point where the wealth can actually support it. And when you're spending at a $28 million level on an income that's been shrinking, you start making choices, and sometimes those choices are pay my team, pay my lifestyle, and deal with the tax man later. Later just became right now. So where does this go from here? Because people need to understand what the actual options are on the table, and none of them are good if Quavo doesn't move fast. Option 1, he pays it, all $2.9 million, or at minimum works out a payment plan with the IRS. This is the Offset option. The IRS will negotiate, they want their money. And if Quavo can come to the table with cash or a credible payment arrangement, they'll work with him. The lien gets released, it goes off public record, life goes on. Option 2, he contests it. Quavo could challenge the IRS's figures, claim errors in the filing, or argue penalties should be reduced. This is a long, expensive legal battle that might buy time but doesn't make the number disappear. And unless there's a genuine accounting error here, the IRS rarely loses these fights. Option 3, and this is the one nobody wants to see, he doesn't do either. He goes silent, the debt sits, the government escalates. And when the government escalates a tax lien, they move from we have a legal claim to we are now actively seizing property. That means that Alpharetta mansion, could be sold at auction to cover the debt, cars, assets, business stakes. All of it is on the table. The lien will stay on public record until every single dollar is resolved. And every day it sits there, it's affecting his ability to get loans, sign new business deals, or enter into contracts. Because any credible business partner is going to Google Quavo, pull that public lien filing, and think twice. This ain't no game, fam. Uncle Sam is patient, and he always collects. Y'all, I want to end this on something real. Because it would be easy to just clown on Quavo and move on. But if we're being genuinely honest, this story is bigger than one rapper's tax problems. We watch these artists come up from nothing. Quavo grew up in Gwinnett County without much. He dropped out of high school to chase rap. He built Migos from the ground up, grinding for years before they got their mainstream moment. He made it, for real. Diamond records, mansions, endorsements, cultural impact that'll outlast whatever happens with these tax filings. But the system that these artists navigate when the money comes, the tax system, the financial management infrastructure, the business education that most of them never got growing up, that system is designed to be complicated. And when you're a young black man from Georgia who suddenly has millions of dollars flowing through your hands and nobody around you came up with the knowledge of how to manage that, how to set aside 30 to 40% of every check for taxes, how to structure business entities properly, how to build a real financial team you can trust, it becomes a minefield. This is the pattern. DMX, Lauryn Hill, J. Rule, TLC. The list of artists who got swallowed by IRS debt is long, and it keeps getting longer because the music industry is very good at making artists rich on paper, and very slow at giving them the financial literacy to stay that way. That doesn't mean Quavo gets a pass. He's a grown man, he had a team, this should have been handled. But it's worth saying out loud that this isn't an individual moral failure. This is a systemic problem that keeps eating talented artists alive. So that's where we are, gang. Quavo, the guy who used to make the whole rap game sound like him, is now sitting on nearly $3 million in federal tax debt, a lien on his mansion, silence from his camp, and the IRS clock ticking on his entire financial picture. Offset squared his situation up and moved on. The question now is, will Quavo do the same before it's too late? Or is this the beginning of the end of the Quavo era for real? Y'all tell me what you think in the comments. Do you think Quavo handles this quietly and comes back stronger? Or is this the moment where we officially close the book on his run at the top? And if you rocking with the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, because we keep it 100 over here every single time. Real recognize real. We out.